Hey students, we have a couple of things for you. So the past few weeks, if we've been talking about mission trips and you've started to have those conversations with your family and friends, we want to know which trips you're interested in going and how interested you are. So if you go to this link, tinyurl.com/BPF student trips, fill that out so we know how we can talk to you and what conversations we can have. And the last thing we have is our junior high retreat. It's coming up really soon. So junior high students, if you have not signed up yet, go to brazospoint.com/students, get signed up. It's going to be a ton of fun.
What's up, students? What matters most to you right now? Is it your friends and the group of people that you choose to spend most of your time with? Is it sports or your extracurriculars? Is that what is dominating your mind and your time? Is it your grades and your performance at school? Probably not. Is it your relationships or that boyfriend or girlfriend or your potential boyfriend or girlfriend? Or is it your faith? Listen, it may not feel like it sometimes, but the way you prioritize things now matters. And what you prioritize now will impact and influence your future. Think about it, your friends and those people you choose to spend the most time with and the friends that you prioritize will absolutely influence your future. Your grades and your performance in school will absolutely influence your future, and your faith and the way you prioritize it, and really the way in which you build your faith now will influence your faith in the future and really who you will become. When it comes to your faith, I want you to think about this, that your time in this student ministry, whether you've been here for several years or even just a few months, that in this season of your life, that you are really building your faith and you're preparing your faith for your future as an adult. And I want you to imagine your faith as being this tower. And your time in this season, in these few years, I want you to imagine that you're building your faith for the future. And that every one of these blocks really represents a moment of growth for you. Maybe one of these blocks represents a conversation you had with a small group leader. It represents a conversation you had with someone in your group. It represents you going to church or you serving, you taking a next step, or you going to a camp or retreat with us. And as you build this tower of your personal faith, and every one of these blocks being a personal moment of growth, I want you to think about one layer in particular. This layer at the bottom. This layer that serves really as the foundation of your entire faith. And I want you to really take a moment and think about what is at the foundation of your faith. What is at the core? What is it you choose to build everything else on? These are the most important blocks. And I want you to think about what have you set as them. What you choose to build your faith on, the foundation of it, is vastly important. And maybe for you, maybe what lies at the foundation of your faith journey and why you're doing what you're doing comes down to maybe a leader. Maybe it was a leader who's influential in your life, a leader that you look to and you ask all the important questions. Maybe it's the people in your group. Maybe it's the student ministry. Maybe it was that experience at camp, or maybe it's something else. But I really want you to take a second and think about what is at the core and foundation of your faith. Why do you choose to follow Jesus? And then I want to challenge you to think about something, that there will come a day where you will no longer be a part of this student ministry. That day may be years from now, but it may be just a few months from now. And I want to challenge you to begin to think about that journey. That day where you take off and go to school, you take off into a career, to join the military, or to do whatever it is that comes next. And I want you to think about this faith that you're building now and going to take with you. How will it stand up to what comes next? The reality is around 70% of students walk away from their faith after high school because this tower of their faith that they've built a foundation upon something is not prepared to withstand what comes next. And so my challenge to you is that the foundation of your faith needs to be something bigger. And here's why. If the foundation of your faith rests on your experiences with us as a student ministry, whether that's camps or retreats, that's high school and junior high nights, listen, those are all great things. But if the foundation of your entire faith is built upon those things and your ability to experience them, well, there will come a day where you are no longer a part of the student ministry. Or maybe part of your foundation of your faith is a relationship you have with a small group leader or someone else. If the foundation of your faith is built upon that relationship, well, there will come a day where that person will no longer be your small group leader or no longer be in your life. Or if the foundation of your faith is built on the fact that you get to follow Jesus surrounded by so many other people in this ministry, maybe in your school, maybe your friends, and definitely in your small group, if the foundation of your faith is built upon that and that there are people next to you and the same people next to you, well, there will come a day where those people will no longer be beside you. What I want you to see is that all of those things are great and they are huge to growing your faith. But my challenge to you is that the foundation of your faith needs to be built on something bigger. And maybe students, as I've described these things, you've realized that you don't really know what lies at the foundation of your faith. And I want to encourage you that that's okay. And I want you to know that we can build our faith on something that has stood the test of time for over 2,000 years, and that every follower of Jesus was meant to build the foundation of their faith on something else. And here's what I mean. A little over 2,000 years ago, the man who would become the center of our faith, Jesus, was crucified on a Roman cross. And he was brutally killed because he claimed to be God in human form. He didn't deserve this death. He never mistreated or wronged anybody, and yet he chose to die in order to demonstrate for us how big God's love truly is. He showed us what a good and gracious God really looks like, and his death was meant to fix what had been broken between us and God. And here's what I want you to see. Every other religious leader died. Every other leader of every other religion died at some point, and yet Jesus' story is different. And that's what makes following Jesus different. And I want you to see this moment that makes Jesus different from everyone else. And this moment is recorded by one of Jesus' closest followers, Matthew, in his firsthand account of what happened in Jesus' life. I want you to see what it says. It says, "There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. The angel said to the women, 'Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus, who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay.'" This is the moment that sets Jesus apart from everyone else. And maybe it's a moment that you've just read before and heard many times, and we lose the significance of it. But what I want you to see is that Jesus, like every other person, died, and yet Jesus, unlike every other person, didn't stay dead. And this is the moment that changed all of human history. He didn't stay dead, but he came back to life. And that moment and that event is meant to be the most important building block of our faith. And here's my challenge to you. Build your faith on what matters most. Let the foundation of your faith be this moment, this event that changed all of human history. That a man named Jesus died and didn't stay dead. And listen, the first-hand accounts of the New Testament tell us this moment happened, but even the historians, even Josephus, who was a historian in that day, tells us that there was historically a man named Jesus who lived and died, and something happened afterwards that changed everything. And when you build your faith on what matters most, this moment and this event that changed all of human history, when that becomes the foundation of your faith that everything else is built upon, it's then that your faith can withstand whatever comes next. And here's the last thing I want you to see, students. God is not afraid of your questions. If you have doubts or uncertainties, I want you to know that's okay and that you are in the right place. But as you begin to explore those things, I want you to know, I want you to start with that moment and that event that changed all of history. And when you do that, you can really realize that science and faith don't have to be in conflict and really aren't worlds apart, but they coexist and complement one another. And this moment is a great reminder that God really is the God of all creation, and there is no question as to who is responsible. And yet everything else that comes next and everything else we learn and that science tells us is all about telling us how God did what he did, and how the God of the universe that came back to life set everything around us into motion. And so students, this is a great question for us to think about. And for you, as you head to small groups, what is the foundation of your faith? And is it something that can be built upon and something that will stand whatever comes next?